Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. In this life, we are on a journey. It's a journey to transcend. It's a journey of elevating consciousness. It's a journey of going from animal tendencies and animal qualities to human tendencies, human qualities, to perfected humanity. The methodology to do this has been prescribed by Allah sending 124,000 different prophets into this world. And each of the prophets came with a way to accomplish this transcendence. Now, we individually need to focus on ourselves and on our own transcendence. Unfortunately, too many people focus outside of themselves on external things such as religion, race, nationality, caste systems, and so on. And they give credence to those systems, to those institutions, to those belief systems, as if they somehow activate transcendence without personal effort, as if they activate a movement along this path without personal effort, without personal involvement. For instance, if you join our religion, you will be saved. If you don't join our religion, you can't be saved. If you join our religion, you are among the chosen. If you don't choose our religion, you are left behind. Now, this is the marketing slogan of every religion. It's not like anyone has a monopoly on that idea. They all have that idea. But in truth, each of us needs to make this journey through our own effort and through our own becoming. So we need to understand what it means to transcend, what it means to become, and we have to learn the steps on this journey. The first understanding that we have to come to is that we have a lower self within us. And this lower self, this lower consciousness, is attached to the elemental form that we exist in. And each of us has an elemental form. This body is an elemental form, and each of us has a body while we are in this incarnation, in this manifestation. And our consciousness can either be within this body or transcend this body. Animal consciousness is a consciousness that resides within the body. And all of the animals have this kind of consciousness, and so does man. Man is capable of having lower and or higher consciousness. So man can live his life in this animal consciousness and become enamored by, entwined in, dedicated to, and believe in this life at the animal level, in the same way that an animal lives its life at the animal level. We become entwined within that. For the fortunate ones, there comes a time and a realization that there's something beyond this animal plane, that there's something more to life than accumulating this illusory world and juggling this illusory world and playing with this illusory world. There's something else. And this usually happens through a realization that comes about through the death of someone close, or through a terrible accident, or through a near-death experience, or something that shocks you into realizing that there is a termination to this life and it doesn't go on forever. This is the fourth stage of consciousness, which is called judgment, and which begins to ask the question, is that all there is? Or is there more to this than what meets the eye? More to this than we can see. Now, there are three different kinds of prayer. There's the prayer that begins to detach us from the elemental world. And these are three different kinds of zikr. And for those of you who don't know, the word zikr means remembrance. And it's a type of prayer where you repeat the names of God. And these names of God, coupled with consciousness, take you in certain directions. The first level of this zikr is called Jalal. And Jalal means that it has a vibratory reaction to the elemental form within your being, and it separates the elemental form from its attachments to the world. So we begin to separate ourselves from our attachments to the illusory world. And in this separation, we then become ready to continue the journey on another level. Now, there are also, besides prayer, there are actions which separate us from the elemental levels. And we have to understand what these actions are, and we have to incorporate these actions. There's a story that comes from the Native American culture where there was a time of drought and there hadn't been rain for an excessive period of time, and people were beginning to suffer and die. And the wise men in one of the tribes decided they were going to go to the mountain and speak to the Great Spirit and get direction. And they went to the mountain and they heard the Spirit, and the Spirit said to them that it would be necessary for the people within the tribe to give up that which they held dearest to them, that physical object that they held dearest to them and take it to the top of the mountain, burn it, and spread the ashes in all four directions. Well, after they heard this, they came down and told all the people what they had been told. And they told the people to think about it and to make their decision as to what they were going to do. And the archers thought about it and they said, well, God could not expect us to give up our bows. Without our bows, how could we provide? The women who had blankets said, how can we give up our blankets? We couldn't keep our children warm and they would die. And so down the line, each person came up with an excuse as to why they shouldn't be the ones to give anything up. And there was this little girl who was an orphan, and she was 8 years old. And the only thing that she had was this little doll. And she had become very, very close to this doll. She took it with her everywhere that she went. She had made, her parents, before they passed, had made clothes for the doll, and the doll was beautifully dressed, and it was the most gorgeous thing she had ever seen. She went to sleep the evening after hearing what the wise men said, and woke up in the middle of the night, and she said, I know what I have to do. And she took the doll and walked to the top of the mountain and burned the doll and spread the ashes in the four directions. And she was so tired, she fell asleep. And in the morning, when she woke up, she felt drops of rain. And the drought had ended because she was able to give up her attachment. This was recognized by the rest of the tribe, and her name was changed to the one who loves her people. Through charity and through giving, we are able to begin to break our attachment to the world. By giving away things that we have, we break our attachment. So not only do we need to enter into higher levels of consciousness, we need to enter into other levels of action. Consciousness without action is not the consummation of that consciousness. And for that consciousness to actually reach fruition, our actions have to be commensurate with that consciousness. So when we begin to understand that we are in unity with all other lives, that we are in unity with all other beings, and that all beings are as important as we are to our Creator, we begin to understand that we have to share with other beings, and we have to learn how to give. And so charity becomes a way to actuate the consciousness within you to rise to higher levels. In other words, we can do specific acts that will help us transcend. So at the level of being released from our attachment to the illusory world and all of the so-called treasures of the illusory world, we have to learn about releasing ourselves, giving them away. We have to learn about hunger, detaching ourselves from all of the fruits of the illusory world and understanding the nature of hunger, understanding how that hunger goes on around humanity and that we have to be involved in the feeding of humanity. This is all at the level of what they call the Jalal Zikr, the Jalal prayer that separates us from our attachment to this elemental world. The elements within us are naturally attracted to the elements within the world, and we have to break that attachment. And this is the first step in transcendence. We then begin the ascension, or what's called the ascension. And as we all know, or if we don't know, we're going to learn that Muhammad went on a night journey, peace and blessings be upon him. And that night journey was that he went from his place on earth towards the throne of Allah. And this ascension happens through being connected to our heart and beginning to understand that within our heart are the prophets, are the ketubs, and God, and they all reside within our heart. So the next zikr, the next prayer, the next repetition of the names of God is to connect through our heart and to begin the ascension towards our Lord, to begin the ascension towards the encounter with reality. Now, the prophet made this ascension and had this encounter with reality, the encounter with the Lord. And in the 5 times prayer, in the course of the prayer, every time it's actually done, the prayer consists of various moments along the route of this ascension. And we individually, when we do this zikr, have to travel this same ascension towards the throne of Allah. And this is called the heart zikr. This is the zikr that goes on through the heart, through the connection with the heart, and through the merging with the heart. Now, this doesn't mean that the words in the zikr have changed. You can do La ilaha illallah, nothing exists but God, I do not exist, in each one of the phases of this zikr, but it takes us to different places and it brings about different results. The third zikr is called the zikr of the soul. The zikr of the soul is when our consciousness has gone beyond wisdom, divine wisdom, and entered into divine luminous wisdom, and we begin the merging process with our Lord. So we go through the transcendence, we go through the ascension into the final merging. Now, these are all words, and these are all explanations using words. But we have to take these words, filter them through ourselves, bring them into ourselves, and make them reality. So first, we have to understand that we need to make a split between our being and this illusory world. We have to separate ourselves from this illusory world. We have to stop being attached to this illusory world. We have to die before death. In other words, our attachment has to be such that we are dead to that attachment. So the things that used to make us react no longer make us react. And we can understand when this happens, when the reactions that we used to have stop happening. And if those reactions continue to happen, we have to be at the point where we can see them happening when they happen, and we can stop them. For instance, the lust for money, the lust for intoxicants, the lust for sex, all of the various lusts that we have that are part of this illusory world have to somehow cease and stop rising up within us. And when these lusts stop rising up within us, we'll begin to understand that we are beginning to lose our attachment to the world. Or another way to say it is, we are becoming dead to those attachments. We are becoming dead to those influences. We are becoming dead before we die to the world. And what separates us from our ability to ascend and transcend is our attachments. And it's not until the attachments are gone that Allah comes into focus for us. And when the attachments disappear, then God appears for us. And then our actions become godly, and our interactions become godly, and our qualities become godly, and our presence becomes godly, and our resonance becomes godly, and we walk through this world in a godly way. We walk through this world with God's qualities, as opposed to the various lusts that we develop in living in the material world. So form cannot know God, because God is not form. So we need to bypass form, transcend form, be done with form, be detached from form. And as we lose the attachment to form, we then begin to acquire an attachment to non-form. And this is the Zikr of the soul. The soul is without form, yet the soul is godlike, and the soul has God's qualities. So if we can bring ourselves to the point where we've gone through the ascendance and we can begin the merger, then we can be in a place where we sit still, where we lose ourself entirely, and we are no longer here, and the qualities that belong to Allah, the gracious names of Allah, become the state that we are in. When we become overwhelmed by mercy and become mercy, we become godly. When we are overwhelmed by compassion and become compassion, we are godly. When we are overwhelmed by love and become love, we are godly. But until these things happen, we are not in that state. Now, we may have glimpses of that state. We may go in and out of that state, but we need to be able to concentrate to be on that state. So what we have to do is we have to set intentions within us to enter those states. And we have to further set intentions within us to leave the various states of the illusory world. And inherent within us is the wisdom that is commensurate to those states. So if you can truly set up a state within you through your intention that you no longer wish to be controlled by or subject to the hypnotisms and the magnetisms of this physical world, if you can set up that intention within you, the requisite wisdom within you will rise to buttress that intention and make it stronger and make it possible for you to live through that intention. And we have to develop the belief system that upon truly intending something, God is going to send us the wisdom to allow that intention to culminate, to allow that intention to reach fruition. So wisdom, which is consciousness, and there are higher levels of wisdom, is tied with your intention to take you higher up the ladder of transcendence, from ascension to merger. But it begins with your inclination. It begins with you making a determination that you're going to do things in a certain way, and you're going to steer the direction of your life in that way. And that means that your thought process has to go in that way, that your actions have to go in that way, and that the way you react to things has to go in that way. So you can't say, I intend to be merciful, and then ignore people in trouble. You can't say, I intend to be compassionate, and then go kick a dog. You can't do these things and consider yourself on the path of transcendence. So our lifestyle, our actions, our thought process, our intention, our wisdom, all together move in that direction. You can't move through just one part of yourself. You can't intend without acting out your intention. So we need to learn that we need to be a representative of that intention. Our action has to be commensurate with that intention. Our action has to be the same as that intention, and we need to be able to watch ourselves on a constant basis to make sure that that's what's going on. So charity has to become natural to us. Giving has to become natural to us. Kindness has to become natural to us. Now, what happens in the world is that if you enter into these transcendent qualities, the world will push you away. The world will make it difficult on you. Certain people will think you've become soft, and they'll begin to push you because now you're soft. The ones who are hard will push you because they think you are soft. But if you've truly taken on the way, if you've truly intended the path, you will not let the world's reaction overwhelm you or influence you, because now you're no longer looking for praise from the world, and you're no longer reacting to blame from the world. All of a sudden, the arbiter of your appropriate behavior is not the world. The arbiter, the judge of your behavior is God. And you've shifted your allegiance from the world to God. You've shifted your life from a life of this world to a life everlasting, to a life in eternity, to a life that goes beyond this life. Now, whether we die before death or wait for death to come, death is part of the equation that this physical body is involved in. One way or the other, it's going to happen. Most people don't quite understand that that's the way it is. And most people cannot foresee the fact or believe the fact that they're going to die. So they continue to act as if there's no death. The wise man takes the steps to bring about the death of the connection to the physical world before the death of the body occurs, and then gets transferred from the physical plane to the next plane. And that consciousness that goes along with the next plane will follow you when the attachments to that physical plane are gone. And we need to believe that. You see, faith is the step before realization. And without faith, that step of realization will not occur. So as we believe, so we shall move forward. As we doubt, we're going to be stuck. As we doubt, we're going to be unable to form intentions, and we're going to be unable to follow through because we don't believe in the results of those intentions. So Bawa used to say, doubt is out. And so our faith has to grow. Our faith has to become stronger and stronger and stronger, that Allah, God, wants our intentions to integrate with his qualities, wants our actions to integrate with these qualities. And upon all of those things happening, he will take us on the path from the animal to the heart to the soul, from the animal towards the ascension, towards the merging. And this path is open to every one of us. This path is available to every man and woman. This path is laid out for us. What we have to do is begin to take it on internally in our modes, in all of our modes of existence. Make it our reality. And when that occurs, our lives will change from an animal life to a human life, to a truly human life, to an ascended, transcended, merging life that comes in contact with our Creator. And this is the reason for our creation, the reason for our being, and this is what we are capable of and what we should be doing with this life, this precious life that's been given to each of us. May we truly understand the nature of this transcendence and merging. May we truly understand the nature of God's qualities. May we truly understand that we are not beings of form, but we are formless beings, and that we enter into that state of formlessness where we exist as one with our soul, take the ascension, the transcendence, and the merging, and allow all of that to happen for us while we're still in this body, to die before death. When death comes, God is. And if we can die now, we don't have to go through the suffering and the pain and the regret that death brings to most people. May we be blessed to truly understand this and to follow this path to our Creator. Ameen, Ameen. Ya Rabbil Alameen. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah wa barakatuh.